Flying over Pakistan, altitude 30,000 feet.
Approaching Soviet airspace.
20 minutes to drop off.
Commencing internal depressurization. Equipment check. Arm main parachute.
All right. You ready to go?
Drop zone still showing a high pressure mass. Cav okay.
Good. We've got high visibility.
When the time is right, I'm going to make a top 10 list of my favorite games of all time in the near future. But I'll just tell you right off the bat that Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater makes my top 5 easily.
Out that cigar. Connecting oxygen hose to interior connector.
Like my previous review, Sons of Liberty, I played this game in the late 2000s, but I never got to cover it. This time, in high definition, we get to see one of the best games ever made as it recounts the tales of the Snake Eater mission. As you can tell, I'm probably going to give this game high marks, so let's get started.
2 minutes to drop off. Stand up.
This game takes place during the Cold War in the 60s, in which the US and the Russians were in deep conflict concerning the Cuban Missile Crisis. As explained in the game, tension between the two nations escalated, almost becoming a full-scale nuclear war, until a deal was made in which the United States sent a Soviet scientist named Sokolov back to Russia to work on a top-secret project.
Isn't he that famous rocket scientist?
The very same. On April the 12th, 1961,
On August 24, 1964, a mission starts to get Sokolov back and stop this secret project from becoming an even bigger threat. Welcome to the start of it all. In a way, even though a bunch of Metal Gear games have been released before Snake Eater, this is the first one in the timeline. And what a totally different adventure it is than the game before it, the Sons of Liberty. Whereas MGS2 took Snake through guided passages and linear missions, Snake Eater is the total opposite. There are hardly any structural buildings in place as it steps back in time and puts you, the player, in a jungle filled with life. And as you might expect, it's not as simple as going from point A to point B. The jungle is teeming with life both to support you and threaten your journey. Every step you take matters. There are snakes, birds, frogs, rats, alligators that can be caught and eaten when your stamina is almost down. This bar is different from your health bar as it limits your actions if it is practically zero, even if you have a decent amount of life. There are a multitude of items that Snake will use to get past armed soldiers and cunning bosses. Like your stamina, this time, some of the items have batteries that decreases the more you use it. You have to think smart and be efficient in this game to survive, because you will need all of it to traverse through the forest. The controls need getting used to because it's still not refined like its predecessor. Snake can climb trees, swim through water, crawl in bushes, and use a combat mechanic called CQC to give the player options in how they attack the enemy. There is a lot to grasp, but it gets a lot more enjoyable the more in control you are. Yet another gripe I have for this edition are the choppy frame rates that happens as soon as the action picks up, whether it's multiple enemies appearing on screen or just a lot of events are happening. Even the CG sequences suffer from this type of frame rate issue.
Go home. Grew in my...
Occasionally, you do step out of the jungle to infiltrate a building with its linear corridors and unsuspecting soldiers, but it rarely happens during this 30-hour game.
So, you're the intruder everyone's talking about. Typical capitalist dog. No manners.
When the going gets rough, you always have your companions for tips and tricks about the current situation at hand. Like I mentioned in my Sons of Liberty review, this is one facet of the series that I love because it gives you information past the game and things about pop culture and weapons used at that time.
Major Tom, this is Snake. Kept you waiting, huh?
For a video game to have these types of events is revolutionary in my opinion. It's almost like its own entity and it's hard to just label it as a video game. The story itself is gripping since it ties the story towards the many characters that Snake will face, both new and old. The game presents many boss fights that will challenge your wit and intelligence, with strategies being totally different from your last encounter. No battle is the same, and it is very much different from the boss you just fought. You can never get complacent.
Well, that was quick.
The cutscenes and telling the story can be a criticism for some since it is quite lengthy, but I think of it as a reward for getting past the many obstacles along the way.
The name's Eva.
As a side note, did I mention you can also play Metal Gear 1 and 2 within this game? Yes, I'm talking about the NES classics. This game has it all when it comes down to the amount of detail in its story, characters, and environments.
And take this too.
Sure, the controls still need some work and the frame rate lags every now and then, but these variables hardly count to a game this solid. Not only will you need to survive the vast jungle, but also using your wit to get past the amazing boss battles you encounter.
Who is she? Apparently she's Sokolov's woman.
Like all Metal Gear Solid games, it ends quickly but the feeling lasts forever. Metal Gear Solid 3 is one of the best games ever made and my favorite Metal Gear Solid of all time.
She's a nice catch.
For this review, I give Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater a 9.5 out of 10.
What a thrill, with darkness and silence through the night. What a thrill, I'm searching and I'll melt into you. What a fear in my heart, but you're so surprised.